You're very welcome to the next episode in our Work From Anywhere series. In today's episode, we're going to be talking about the remote work world in 2030, where we're going to have Prithwiraj, Choudhury, Ben Stewart and Gonçalo Hall. Next week, keep an eye out, we're going to have Tyler Selhorn, Maya Middleness and Ryan Anderson. The topic next week is going to be asynchronous, anytime, anywhere and much more besides. So tune in next week, same time, and looking forward to seeing you then.
And good evening for my part, tuning in from Dubai, maybe morning, maybe afternoon, wherever you are in the world. Very, very happy to be with you today again to run this new episode of the Work From Anywhere series. So first of all, thank you so much to everyone who has been part of this series so far. Maybe you already know me. My name is Aurelie. I'm a very proud remote worker, work from anywhere advocate. And today I'm going to be joined with three amazing speakers who actually I think we share a lot in common. So in a lot and all of our episodes in the past, we've tried to touch on the future of remote work and specifically what is coming down the track over the coming 2 or 3 years. So for today with John, what we thought is, hey, why don't we look a little bit further and maybe look at the future? How would it look like 10 years from now? That's exactly the focus today. What can we learn from the impact of innovative remote work communities that are starting to be built right now, that are up and running, like Tulsa Remote in the USA, Startup Madeira in Portugal? So just before bringing in our guests today, I wanted to share some quick stats with you, because the thing is, we have no idea what's going to come down the road in the next 10 years, but we already have some clues based on some recent surveys and research. So according to Gartner, and this is quite a recent survey, they just came, they forecast that 51% of global knowledge workers will be remote by the end of this year. Basically, it leaves us 4 full months until we get there. Microsoft, 2 months ago, has released their 2021 Work Trend Index. And they have surveyed 31,000 full-time employed or self-employed workers across 31 markets. What we learned from that is that 46% of the workforce is currently planning to move because now they have the chance to work remotely and work from anywhere. Another interesting figure I wanted to share with you is that over 1 year and a half, basically since the pandemic, remote job postings on LinkedIn have increased over 5 times, which is pretty huge. If we think about what we have discussed in the past, like the past 2 months with our different guests, we did mention that we are starting to see different type of workplace strategies being built right now. We have typically the resident model with everybody going back to the office. We have the hybrid model that's a little bit in the middle, trying to be flexible. And then the third one that is completely virtual, 100% fully remote work models. So interestingly, we discussed in the past episodes that sometimes when we think about hybrid workplaces, it's sort of becoming a default strategy for some organizations that would lack vision. And interestingly, McKinsey & Company has just released themselves a survey saying that most organizations have not clearly communicated a vision for the post-pandemic work. 40% have not communicated anything at all. 28% vaguely communicated, which leaves us only with 32% that has been very well communicated. So we are shaping up the future of work as we speak. And what more than bringing our 3 guests right now to actually start the real talk, right? So we have approximately 40 minutes left altogether. And I thought it wouldn't do justice if I introduce the 3 of our speakers myself. I think it's way better that I ask every one of you, Raj, Gonçalo, Ben, to introduce yourself. And just before, or rather after you introduce yourself, Can you tell to our audience who is listening to us from different continents, what has been for you the biggest surprise or the biggest shock when it comes to remote work over the past 6 months? Gonçalo, let's kick off with you. You're already with your microphone. Oh, you're on mute. You're on mute. We cannot hear you.
Of course. How can we start
Thank
an
you.
event without saying we are on mute? It's impossible. We have to keep
Thank
things
you.
as they should
Check.
be.
That's checked off the list.
Well, guys, I just think thank you so much for having me here. It's a huge pleasure to be around these very smart people, and I'm having a
Our
blast
pleasure.
just talking with people like you. So, what was the biggest surprise when it comes to remote work? For me, is that some people actually want to go back to the office. It's around 30%, more or less. They don't want to go full time. But that has been the biggest surprise. I know the context is because
Yeah.
most people actually work from home and didn't actually work from anywhere. And I myself, I hate to work from home. So I understand where it comes from, but I'm very, yeah, it shocks me that people didn't see through it, that why they think that way. And that remote work, it doesn't mean that they have to stay in the middle of the city working from their apartment. So that is the one thing that shocked me.
Love that. I suggest we park this because I have many subsequent questions to that, and we're going to get there. Raj, can you please introduce yourself and tell us and the audience what has shocked you or surprised you over the past 6 months?
Sure. Thank you so much for having me. My name is Prithwiraj. I go by Raj. I'm a professor at the Harvard Business School. And in a nutshell, I've been studying this phenomena of work from anywhere for many years prior to the pandemic. I still distinctly remember that in 2015, I wrote this draft of a paper and called it Work from Anywhere. And I had no idea that one day this would become a phenomena.
Did you trademark this?
I did not. I'm an academic. So I guess, so just to complete my introduction, I've studied the phenomena from the perspective of both large companies that are transitioning into work from anywhere, such as the US Patent Office and TCS and other large companies. Google, I've been advising Google and Waymo and other companies. But also these all remote startups, which are designed to not have any offices, such as GitLab and Zapier. So what has really surprised me is the speed of change. I think it was sort of like, it's obvious in retrospect, but we had such a pent up energy of workers wanting the flexibility, and the pandemic gave us an excuse to go and demand it. I think that was the most surprising thing. So what I foresaw as earlier playing out in 10 years has played out in 2 years. So that's been the big surprise for me.
Super interesting. Ben, can we ask you, who are you, what are you doing, and what has surprised you over the past 6 months?
Great. Good morning. Thanks for having me here as well today. My name is Ben Stewart, and I work with the Tulsa Remote program in Tulsa, Oklahoma. Given the global audience, I'll add the state context for those of you who may be familiar with the musical Oklahoma. I have the privilege of helping bring over 1,000 Tulsa Remote members to our community, people with remote jobs that started in 2018, pre-pandemic, that were early adopters when we estimated that between 3 and 5% of the US workforce had the opportunity to work remotely. And as you know, given Raj's speed of change comment, that has dramatically increased, and the persistence there has been probably the thing that has shocked us all, right? Given that you had so many new remote workers overnight, that there's so many data points and so many surprises, and nothing about the last 16 months could have been predicted, I don't think, by even the most seasoned economists or prognosticators. But one thing I saw this week that I will say shocked me was the Economist's article from Hacker News that showed 77% of current job postings mention remote work versus 25% that mention on-site, which was completely inverted from pre-COVID numbers, perfectly inverted. So I think that to me, that visual display of data was very shocking, but confirming so much of what each of us hear anecdotally on a day-to-day basis.
We hear so much about there's no coming back. We're building the new now right now. And still, to your point, Gonçalo, it's quite interesting to hear that people are eager to go back to the office. But could this be because we lack these human connections for now? How long will this actually last? I guess these are all the questions marks, right? To kick us off, and thank you so much for your inputs. I've made some notes, and I would love to circle back and get to that. And in the meantime, in the audience, so welcome to those who have just joined us. And don't worry if you missed the introductions, there it is recorded, so you will be able to play this back. Don't hesitate to add your 2 cents, add your comments or your questions for Raj, Gonçalo, or Ben, and we will do our best to address them. Raj, I would love to kick off with you because we've mentioned that it's a little bit of a crystal ball, but you also mentioned that since 2015, you already used that very terminology of work from anywhere. So could you tell us more about the research that you've been doing around that, mainly in the US? And according to you, what has been the biggest benefit and the biggest challenge for companies and remote workers adopting that new style of work?
Sure. So I'll quickly make 2 points. I'll first define and distinguish work from anywhere from work from home, because this is something I feel that many CEOs and CHROs even today don't understand. So in work from home, you are working from home for 2 or 3 days a week, and then you're going to an office for the rest of the week. So you have to go to the office every week, which means you are still living in the same city, presumably where the company has an office. In work from anywhere, the big change is now the worker can go and live in a city, town, state, or even a country of her or his choice, which means that you don't have to go to an office every week. Now, one careful thing I'll say is that I know many companies are practicing hybrid. That's the option. It's possible to work from anywhere in a hybrid model too, in the following way, that the team decides that they're going to be in an office for 1 week a month. For the rest of the 3 weeks, you can work from anywhere. Or the team says we're going to be in the office 2 weeks every quarter. For the rest of the quarter, you can work from anywhere. So work from anywhere can be done within the hybrid model, very much so. And that's actually what I advocate. So my mantra is we can work from anywhere. We go to the office to socialize. The big benefits are fourfold. One, my research with the patent office has shown that under some conditions, I'm not going to claim everywhere, productivity can go up. So productivity gains is one of the possibilities. The second possibility is you can now hire from anywhere. You are no longer constrained to the labor market of that city or town where the company has an office. So you can look for coders in Kenya, option traders in Poland, you get it. The third thing is it creates a more equal workforce because, for decades, women have lost out on career opportunities because the spouse doesn't want to move to a different location when she gets a new promotion or a new job. In work from anywhere, you don't have to move anywhere. And finally, last but not the least, there are lots of cost savings on real estate, on utilities. There are lots of, I won't call them constraints, there are lots of organizational process changes that are needed to make work from anywhere work. And I can talk more about that. It needs, in summary, think of this as an organizational transformation. You need to socialize, communicate in a different way than what we were used to in a physical office.
I love that. And to circle back, so I'm involved, like 80% of my time, I spend it on business travel. And there's a lot of conversation going on right now on this, with these new workplace models and offsite meetings, having regular checkpoints. It's going to change the face of how we manage travel and meetings as well within organizations. So I could definitely connect a lot of dots with what we're just saying. And so to this point, I would like to emphasize a little bit more of the work from anywhere part. And this is where Ben and Gonçalo, I would love to hear your thoughts, because both of you are actually actively working on building those communities, but your work is actually very different. Ben, you started to explain a little bit what you were doing in Tulsa, Oklahoma. Can you tell us a little bit more about that and how you have built that community?
Absolutely. So Tulsa Remote was built on the theory that many Americans had the opportunity to work from anywhere. And many of those individuals still lived in very high cost of living environments, those top 10 tech agglomerating cities that they were probably previously employed in office in. There was an opportunity to help them stretch their imagination of where a possible home could be. And they did not know of a place called Tulsa, most of them. And so we wanted to show why Tulsa was the perfect hybrid city, if you will, where it was big enough to have all of the amenities of a major metropolis, a world-class ballet, opera, philharmonic, symphony, the largest privately funded public park on the city's riverfront, a world-class Western art museum, a burgeoning arts culture in the city's arts district that was just being launched, a population that was over 1 million MSA, but didn't have traffic, didn't have the pollution of a major metropolis, was basically 15 minutes from anywhere using the City Lab 15-minute city methodology. But they probably didn't know much about Tulsa. And it turns out 80% of our members had no tie to Tulsa previously. And so we put out our marketing announcement. The $10,000 number clearly grabbed the headlines, saying $10,000 to help defray the cost of your move to Tulsa. Well, where's Tulsa? Go to tulsaremote.com, take a look. We'd love to share why Tulsa could be a great destination for you. Within the first 3 months, we had over 10,000 applications, and we had no idea what we would expect on the front end, but clearly it struck a chord, and no paid media, just earned media telling the story for us of why Tulsa could be that great destination.
That's so cool, because I was about to ask you, how do you promote such communities? How did it grow? Like, wow, that's pretty powerful.
And subsequently, we've had over 60,000 applications, and now we've brought over 1,000 people to Tulsa, and we have a multiplier of 1.7 people per remote member coming with them. We have an average income of over $100,000 per person. And we're working actually right now with Raj and his team at Harvard Business School to continue to evaluate and build out the data set that's going to be really robust. And I'm very excited to be able to come back, hopefully, with you all and share more about what we've found based on kind of the economic multiplier, what we're seeing as the ripple effects. And lastly, I'll just leave you with this. We believe we're in the very early innings of a transformational change here in Tulsa because of the types of people we've brought to the community and also their staying power. 90+% have stayed in Tulsa beyond the 1 year they're in the program. And that is a tremendously valuable statistic that is why we do what we do.
That's so nice. Gonçalo, I'd love to hear, because your initiatives are a little bit more recent, but you've been working in remote work from anywhere area for a long time. So to add to my question I asked to Ben, I would love to understand as well the type of profiles that you have managed to attract with Madeira, for example, and then Ben, circle back with you on the types of profiles as well that you are seeing in Tulsa.
Beautiful.
Over to you, Gonçalo.
One of the things that Tulsa got right since the beginning, and I'm not sure if they even understood, I think first the marketing was amazing. I'm following it since day one because their marketing was mind-blowing, and it was just organic like us in Madeira. But the thing that they got right is that it's not about only attracting people, it's about creating a community so they want to stay. And this is the thing that nobody's talking about, is the create a community part, because you can attract people whatever they want. It's easy to attract people. It's hard to make them happy where they are. And this is where the community comes to play. So my proposal for Madeira was exactly, let's create a community. And my proposal was, let's do it in a village, because villages in Europe are very abandoned. They are crazy beautiful, and there is nobody living there. They became small touristic centers for the summer, and nobody's living there in the winter. So we decided to use a village, Ponta do Sol, and create a digital nomad village. We didn't close the village. We didn't expel anyone from the village. We just created a free co-working space that anybody could come to. We just create and organized accommodation. We just educated the locals about digital nomadism, what prices, what are these people eating. It looks like 25 25-30% of nomads are vegans or vegetarians. Portugal is not a great country for vegans and vegetarians in the beginning, so there was an adjustment there. So we had to educate first the locals, and then we just launched it. And it was a little bit like Tulsa. The media just went crazy over it because it was a village, because it was crazy beautiful, and it just took over. But again, most people went there for a month, and they only went there for a month. And what happened is that I would say more than 80% of the people never left in that month. It was the record of delayed and postponing flights, because the average stay was around 3 months. Nobody wanted to leave. Again, it's not because Madeira is beautiful. It is beautiful. It's not because people and culture are amazing. People are very amazing, and the food is really good. It's because they found the community there. Because after 1 week, you knew already 50 people. After 2 weeks, you know 100. After 2 weeks, you are traveling with them. You are sleeping with them. You are going all around. You are creating experiences. You are creating memories. And this is why Madeira was so successful, because we only focus in creating the community, and then the word of mouth starts spreading. And then everybody just wanted to stay there. And we see a big difference between people who wanted to stay in Funchal, the main city of Madeira, and people who wanted to come to a little village. We had around 7 to 8 events every single day in the little village in Ponta do Sol. 7 to 8 events, from CrossFit, yoga, skill sharing. It's everything you can imagine. We did it there. So people actually start to move out from the city to go to the village, which was our main goal, because, well, city is actually boring. It's more happening in Ponta do Sol. Why? Community. So regarding the people who came, we had 8,500 registrations in the first 5 months. Around 4,000 people came to Madeira, which is really cool. Some people already moved and opened businesses in Madeira, which is really good. It's money on the pocket of the government. They are happy. But we see the profile being around 35 years old, usually single people, and actually a very nice balance between men and women, which is something that really went well. Again, because, to be honest, because of the community. Again, it's a safe place. If you have a community, women feel safe. If you have good activities for everyone, people feel safe.
Big question. Even myself, as a solo traveler working from anywhere, I get that question a lot about how do I do this, because I'm a woman on my own. That's really good to hear.
So safe. It's a community. If you know somewhere where there is 500 people also in the same community with the same like-minded spirit as you go there and you know it's safe. And this makes a big difference in the people, even in the kind of people you attract.
Super interesting. Raj, I actually have two questions in one for you, and then we also have a question that has been submitted by one of our audience members that we will play a bit later. Raj, you were cited earlier this week in the New York Times in an article around how companies should avoid bias against remote workers. And we have actually spoken a lot about like how remote work and work from anywhere is a good opportunity to build a more inclusive workplace. Could you tell us a little bit more again about your experimental research you've been doing around that topic?
Sure. So let me say two things. The first thing is, there are two forms of hybrid in my mind. One is the good hybrid, which we talked about earlier, where the team works for anywhere and then comes together in an office or a retreat location once a while to socialize. And when the team is coming together, everyone tries to come together because then you build those deep social connections. Then on the flip side, there is a bad hybrid model. And the bad hybrid model is where the team is doing whatever they want to do. So some people come Monday, Tuesday, some people come Thursday, Friday, some people come more, some people come less. And that is bad for two reasons. You can have a bifurcation in the information networks. So some information is shared between people who see each other more. And the second thing is the managers might have an implicit bias of rating people they see more better. So if I see you more, I give you a better performance rating, I push you for promotion and all that. So I think we first have to be very aware of that bias. And then there are many ways to solve it. The first thing to do is, as a manager, we have to train managers to divide equal attention to every direct report. It doesn't matter how much or how frequently or how much or how less they come to the office. We really, as a manager, have to give equal attention. So check in on everyone. If they're in the office, check in on them in the office. If not, check in on them virtually. And the second thing we need to do is to expand the social network for each employee, and there virtual can really help us. And that's my research. So what I did with a large global bank last summer was we organized virtual water coolers. And these virtual water coolers brought interns at the global company face to face virtually with very senior managers of the company. And these managers would normally not give time to the interns. And we did it every week for 5 weeks. It was a randomized control trial. And we found that at the end of the 5 weeks, the interns who had that face time with senior managers performed better and also had a better chance of getting a job offer. So I think in a nutshell, virtual can beat physical there, because in the physical internship, no intern would press the elevator button, go to the CXO suite and say, I knock on the door of the CEO and say, I want to have an informal conversation with you. But we can do that in the virtual world. So I think
it breaks some walls, exactly. And I've recently read something about some companies who are starting as well to figure out their strategy, and it was a powerful mantra that I kind of like. And they said, if one people is on screen, then everybody should be on screen, to try to avoid that difference of experience that could be felt amongst employees. So what I like is, so no matter if you're working within the same organizations or if you're more of a remote worker choosing different locations, to connect the dots between everything that we've said, it's really around, yes, exactly, like building a community. But at the end of the day, if we think about those remote locations such as Tulsa, for example, Madeira, what I see is also an opportunity for governments or even local government entities to actually boost the economy, the local economy. And this is what I wanted to ask. Typically, Gonçalo, you've just mentioned that some ended up building their own businesses in Madeira, so the government ended up being quite happy. We've also mentioned, typically, if you choose to work from the countryside, it might involve as well to get the government involved to get access to high-speed internet access everywhere. So I just wanted to hear your thoughts. So this question applies to the three of you, Raj, Gonçalo, Ben, on how and if we should work more with governments or even local governments entities to actually go bigger and make that more mainstream. Whoever wants to take the question first.
I can start. I'm working with 4 governments now. So Madeira, Cabo Verde is my first African community. It will be huge. Should be announced next week. And it will be really fun to work with an African country because the culture is very different and the challenges are very different. So the vision I have is that most people, when they have ideas, they go to the government to fund the ideas. And what I'm seeing is actually the government is a very good facilitator, is a very bad working partner. So they are amazing at facilitating, they're amazing at open doors, but they don't always want to fund things. So if you can find usually a private and public partnership is where I see that the things are working really good for me. So the government has all the access, I have the expertise, we work together for a common good. This is from my projects, what I'm seeing, it's really working well.
Perfect.
And I can share that, the George Kaiser Family Foundation incubated Tulsa Remote from the inception. However, over the last year, we have worked with the state of Oklahoma, who has actually expanded their quality jobs program, which normally funds employers to fund the talent themselves. And so we had passed during this legislative session, the Remote Quality Jobs Act, which expanded that quality jobs program to structure as a pay for success and reimburse the talent moving the $10,000 over time that they're in the state. So that's been very exciting to see that partnership evolve and develop and hopefully expand the quantity of remote workers across the state.
That's super interesting to hear. Raj, do you have thoughts to share with us on that?
So the only other thing I would add is there are great examples, given how this is an inflection point. So I'll make 2 quick points. So when I studied TCS, which is a company with 500,000 employees worldwide. And they were all working from offices, campuses. And they went 75% remote overnight. They had to work with the government in India really, really closely in many dimensions. So, for instance, the government has a special economic zone policy where computers can only be kept inside some buildings. So they needed permission to take that out. And the government became a partner in that whole business model redesign. The second thing I'll say is that this work from anywhere model should be taken to mayors, governors in the peripheral regions around the world, because it's a great opportunity for them to attract talent. They should become the champions of work from anywhere.
I love that, because if you look at the first digital nomad visas that have been deployed like over the past years, if you look at the destinations involved, it's mostly destinations that highly rely on tourism activities as well as part of their GDP, right? So, and to connect the dots, we have a great question coming from one of our audience's members, and I love to hear your thoughts on that. So, John, feel free to play it for us, please.
Hi, everyone. I'm Christy Sullivan, the founder of the Executive Remote Worker online community. We're a community of business professionals who want to travel and work remotely. My question for today's panel is, have you given any consideration to the unique needs of the remote workers who don't quite fit the mold of the traditional backpacking digital nomad?
So I think Christy raises an interesting point, right? It's because we say we, because I include myself in that crowd. We're actually working full time, even though some people like work while traveling, but we need to cater for different types of needs, right? So, Gonçalo, Ben, do you want to share your thoughts and answer, Christy?
I don't know many backpacking digital nomads. I think that's a legend because I haven't met them, or I'm going to the wrong destinations. I don't know. I've been to Bali, I've been to Thailand. I met some in Bangkok, Thailand, the bankrupt ones. But most of it, I meet people that are managing huge businesses. I meet VP of big companies like Trivago. I met them in Bali. And most of, I would say, people coming to Madeira, I would say 60% of people coming to Madeira are actually full-time employees. So I think that's a preconception against digital nomads, that they are still backpackers. I see guys with the best computers working from Bali, working from Thailand, and getting more than 5K a month easily. Taking that into account, what I'm seeing in most destinations, Madeira included, is that full-time employees that were before a little bit put on the side, there was a little bit of thing against the full-time employees because you haven't made it, while the freelancers and the entrepreneurs have made it. They have the freedom and independence of working 12 hours a day. So what I'm seeing here is that now the level is much more, the field is much more leveled, meaning 50% of the people coming to Madeira or more are actually full-time employees, and it's the same for them. So they have they go to the co-working space, so they work from home, they stop working around 5, they go to CrossFit, they go for swimming, they get some drinks on, they get community, they repeat. I don't see many unique needs. One thing that we are catering for one of the new communities in the Azores Islands, also Portugal, is that we are making a community where also families can go. This is different. So we are creating this new kind of community where we have someone taking care of kids, so parents can work, and even schools that accept kids that are foreign. This is a new thing that we are doing. But between full-time employees and digital nomads, I don't see many differences as of now. Or if they were, maybe there are in some communities. The communities where I go to, I don't see them, to be honest.
Maybe building on Gonçalo's point a little bit, I would say that it all goes back to community, which both of us are going to say very clearly today, I think throughout everything we talk about. Our members are coming because they are working remotely, and they still want that in-person human interaction. And so we're able to provide a very unique scale of remote work community in Tulsa. And I would say to Christy's question, we're also anchoring people in Tulsa. It's not to say don't travel and go and recreate abroad or take a road trip, and Tulsa is perfectly situated right smack dab in the middle of the country. And I think that's maybe what Christy was also getting at, and Gonçalo too. Almost all of our members have a full-time large job. But that said, we all value that asynchronous work and the flexibility of our geography. And so I think that Christy's question in my mind is also referencing the fact that our members love the flexibility to not just call Tulsa home, but also spend a month in Tulum in February, or maybe go and visit their parents when things open up in the UK for the summer. Thinking about things in a sense of we're going to anchor and call Tulsa home, but then we recognize that our members have and desire and deserve a lot of flexibility where they actually spend parts and pieces of their day-to-day time.
I love that, and I agree. There's some sort of a myth that either you're always on holidays when you work while traveling, or that you're a backpacker. But slow travel is also becoming quite big, and more ethical travel, trying to make a positive, nicer impact, stay a little bit longer in the destination. Exactly to your point about community, get a sense of what's the local life about, especially if you're traveling abroad. This is an amazing opportunity. And Raj, I have a question here for you, because there's been a lot of press as well talking about the great job migration. And there's a quote from Steve Callaghan, LinkedIn's first chief HR officer, that I actually really like. And I wanted to hear your thoughts on that. He said that in the next 2 to 3 years, we are going to see the largest career migration in history. More people are going to change companies, jobs, professions, and career path than ever before. And according to him, he doesn't think that lots of big companies actually realize what's coming. So do you think that, well, I'm pretty sure, you would probably echo this job migration idea, but do you think that on the top of this job migration, do you foresee a geographical migration on the top of the pure job migration?
Sure. So I think it's a very interesting quote and lot to unpack. So let me make a few observations.
You have 3 minutes. No, just kidding.
Sure. So the first thing I want to say is that, of course, the geographic distribution of where talent is will get really, it'll change. So, and it's already happening. Anecdotally, companies didn't realize that there's a huge programmer base in Kenya or Bangladesh or places that they never considered. And there is that talent, which is now going to get tapped. And so we'll see like a global migration in where jobs are being done. The second thing we'll see is that there'll be two types of companies. Companies that embrace work from anywhere and they will attract talent, and companies that keep denying work from anywhere and the reality and want to bring time back to 2019. And my prediction is those companies will lose talent, not all talent, the best possible workers, the workers who have choices. They're going to move. The third thing I predict is that most new startups will start in an all remote fashion, which will mean that many of the workers will migrate from mature companies to all remote small startups, because once again, they will receive the flexibility there. And the final thing that I'm observing is that even in the blue collar workforce, there is a migration in the sense that people now realize that instead of doing the clerical job in the town hall, where I have to commute every day for 1 hour and do a really boring job, I can do DoorDash and deliver goods for that same 2 hours and make the equal amount of money. So we'll see more workers migrating to the gig economy from really boring blue collar jobs. So I think a lot will change. I agree. Super
interesting. And to that, we had a great question from Dee. Just looking at the crystal ball, each of you, Ben, Gonçalo, and Raj, what percentage of employees do you think will actually work temporarily abroad in 5 or 10 years' time?
I can go. I'd say 30%. Most people want to work remotely for the freedom not to work abroad. So I would say 30%.
Okay.
I would say from my perspective, our members are looking for a domestic domicile from which to call their home. I would say that, and it's really hard for me to estimate right now, especially because so many of our members joined us during the pandemic when the borders were closed to so many countries, especially from the US. But I would say 20% of our members would like the opportunity to work outside of the country for at least a month. I don't know, 10, 20%. It's not a significant number for us in our program.
Well, the US is such a large country anyway that it's almost abroad if you're going from west to east compared to us Europeans. So, but it's a great point. This is why I chose Dubai. I actually arrived in Dubai during the pandemic as well, and I chose to make it my new hub because it's just in the middle of the world. It offers a lot of opportunities, and once the world starts to open up, it's going to give me some nice options as well. Raj, what's your prediction to answer Colin's question? Sorry, Dee's question. Colin's coming next.
Yeah. So being an academic, I have to be more careful. I will not give a number, but I think it's going to be a large number of people. And it's not only permanent relocation. What I think, to echo Ben's point, many people will take workations, which is combining work and vacations. And they will go abroad for a month, 2 months. They'll live in a different country for part of the year. And that's also going to be, I think, a really powerful idea.
And I'll just mention one thing from my personal experience. I was fortunate to get both my shots in early part of the winter of 2021. And I went to Miami for a week of getaway where I was staying with a friend. And I will just say, from my perspective, it was actually incredibly difficult to work remotely from a place that was new to me for that week. Just doing all of the setup and takedown and scheduling and figuring out my new flow of where's the best place for the Wi-Fi, where's the best light, where can I. So I just share that as a very personal experience that I always think about when I think about these types of things, where if I was working for one of these destinations, quote unquote, I think there's a real industry to be had around building out some sort of remote village around. If you come for the week to X place, know that you'll be able to work in Y place, because I think that the more we do this, the more we're going to see these complications be very, very real. In a place like Miami, where you would think excellent broadband, great connectivity, I still found it to be incredibly challenging. So anyway, just think it's an interesting dynamic.
Absolutely. Hence my point on slow travel as well. This is also why, for those reasons, but also because we're working full time to leave time to explore. Definitely with you, like come, like, just like buy a package on the shelf and have everything ready. So I know we have a hard stop. We have 2 minutes left. So I'd love to maybe even wrap up. I saw Colin's question about the new skill set. So as closing words, I'd like to ask each of you, and maybe we can wrap as well the Colin's question about the skill set for managers in this one. According to you, what will be the second and third order effects of work from anywhere that we need to watch out for the coming 10 years? Raj, let's start with you.
So I think, that's a question that, we can talk for 1 hour. So on the skill set, let me answer the skill set question. I think on the skill set question, if I had to summarize in 30 seconds, I would say we'll need to develop skills to read and write instead of talk and listen, because we are all primed to do meetings in conference rooms where we are talking and listening, mostly talking. But in an work from anywhere world, there's a lot of knowledge that has to be codified in handbooks that we need to read asynchronously, and we need to respond to asynchronously. So we'll do less meetings and more reading and more thoughtful writing.
I love that.
Darren Murphy will be so happy with your answer.
Hello, Darren. Gonçalo, since you're on the mic, what is your view?
I would say the biggest changes I'm seeing is neighborhoods will grow and thrive. We'll stop living in big cities. We'll live in neighborhoods. It's not about I am from New York. It's about I'm from a specific neighborhood. We'll have our neighborhood co-working space. We'll go to a small neighborhood co-working space with 30, 40 people instead of these big WeWorks. And usually it will be outside the city center. Redistribution of the population, it's happening already. Repopulation of villages, it's happening already. And one thing it's less, we are seeing it slowly coming into play is we will stop working 40 hours a week. 40 hours a week was made for industry, should stay in industry. So we'll see a change on that too. Skills, writing, I think it will be huge because that's just those, like, it will be about writing and reading. Self-management, self-management will be huge as well. So people came from freelancing and who will go to freelancing will have a huge advantage on the job market. And empathy, we are seeing a big a huge spike in empathy and the need of empathy. We have kids crying, dogs barking everywhere. So empathy will be big, and human-centric companies. Remote work will stop being an advantage in 10 years. Human-centric companies will thrive.
I'll just close this out building on the Collins question. I think, Raj mentioned the key codification of skills that are needed. I would just say, in my experience thus far, it really boils down to mutual trust between the employer and the employee, and the manager and the employee. And so if you have that in line, given the democratization of opportunities due to remote work, I think that you see so many people saying that they're actively searching for new jobs, up to 60% I've seen coming out of the pandemic. I think what they're looking for really is that mutual trust between them and their relationships. So relationships matter in everything we do, but the mutual trust element, I think, is fundamental. So that's just my perspective.
Love it. Super nice. Well, we're almost out of time. Thank you so much, Raj, Ben, Gonçalo, for your great insights. I could go for hours discussing this topic because there's so much to talk about. And Raj, about the asynchronous work, you perfectly introduced next week's Work From Anywhere series. I would really love to thank our audience as well for being with us every week. Again, Raj, Gonçalo, Ben, thank you so much for being with us today. And I hope that we will keep in touch through the virtual world and meet in person, maybe, who knows, somewhere in the world. Thank you so much, and see you around.
Thank you. Bye-bye, everyone.
Thank you.